Hello, my lovely humans. Let's get ready for some trial tea. I have some green and white fusion tea today to talk about the Donna Adelson trial. I do realize that I am behind. I've been working 12-hour days, and it has been putting me behind, and some of the areas that I've been working in, they're not really conducive for me to be able to listen to the trial at work, unfortunately. So it does lead me to trying to get them watched after work, and then by that time I'm usually too tired to film. So as we just progress with life, balancing our lives with trial life, we're going to talk about day 3 of the Donna Adelson trial. Donna Adelson has been charged with multiple counts related to first-degree murder, including first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation of first-degree murder. All of this does kind of rope into one, but it's because just if you are not the person who is doing the pew-pew, you're not the person doing the stab-stab, you are not the person putting a poison into something, does not mean that you will not be charged. Being an accomplice to murder still counts as you are doing stuff to facilitate the ending of another person's life. And as long as the prosecution can connect those dots to a jury, you can still get charged for that. Now, the jury are the ones who are interpreting the facts. Let's talk about the facts that were presented on day 3. And I will also say that Judge Everett has been trying really hard to get this trial done in under 2 weeks because of how many delays it's been having. So he has been doing 10-hour trial days instead of 8. He was like, you know what, we're going to hang on a little longer past 5. We're going to start a little earlier to try and get this done. So these days have been longer as well, and I'm trying to give you a 10-hour plus day squished into less than 35 minutes. So on day 3, we get the immediate tea from Jeff Licassi. Jeff Licassi is Wendi Adelson, Donna Adelson's daughter's latest boyfriend. Shortly after the divorce happened, she started dating this other Florida State University professor, Jeff. And he said that there were some red flags early on their very second date. Wendi burst into tears and was crying and upset over the fact that her ex-husband would not let her relocate the children. Now, at the same time, if we remember from day 2, Rob said that he'd gotten a mysterious text from Wendi because they almost never talk. He is the most estranged, they don't interact a lot child because he's been living in New York for 12 years. And he said that out of nowhere she sent him a text about a secret boyfriend, the secret boyfriend being Jeff. And when questioned about it, Jeff said, no, I met her mother. She wasn't happy that I wasn't Jewish, but the kids, I met his dad, and I met Charlie. Yeah, I've met her family. We've had dinner with them and hung out with them. I was around her kids a lot. Like, yeah, I don't consider that much of a secret. And just want to pause real quick. Donna Adelson was upset, or not as pleased in the least, that Jeff wasn't Jewish. She really has. If we check out the Match.com sends that she was doing, Donna wanted and aspired for her daughter to be with somebody Jewish, but at the same time, she was using Dan Markel's faith against him, saying that he was trying to indoctrinate the children early and sending them to synagogue when they were first born. And, you know, and she was like, if you guys get divorced, then suddenly the kids won't eat non-kosher food. Yeah, because they're Jewish. And I do want to say, I do understand that not every single Jewish person firmly adheres to the kosher diet, but Dan Markel obviously did, and he wanted his children to do the same. So Donna, why do you want your daughter to date somebody who's Jewish, but then be mad that they're Jewish? Personally, the FCA thinks, this is just my opinion and speculation, I think that Donna has some discriminatory thing in her head about Jewish people, that they are successful, that they have connections, and that if you're Jewish, this somehow gives you an up in status. And that's why she wanted her daughter to be with them. And she wanted there to be less faith involvement with Judaism, but more of the social aspects of being Jewish, or perceived social aspects of being Jewish. I digress. Jeff continues to talk about how no, he wasn't a secret boyfriend, and that that Wendi was constantly upset, saying the relocation thing, how she hated Tallahassee, blah, blah, blah. And he had mentioned to her at one time, he said, hey, listen, you are so upset about this. Is this relationship between you and I worth pursuing if you're clearly going to leave? Like, you really want to leave. I'm not leaving Tallahassee, so why should we continue this? She goes, oh, this is Wendi answering. I won't leave Tallahassee unless something happens to Dan. That is a fascinating phrase. Let's analyze that phrase for a second. She doesn't say, if I get other job opportunities, if Dan relocates for his job opportunities, because that does happen with professors, especially people who study certain things. They get asked to travel and transfer more often than other job positions. She doesn't say anything like that. Oh, no, 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 no. Or if she got a better, like, house offer somewhere else. If something happens to Dan. Not if, when the children get older. None of that. If something happens to Dan. That's the thing holding her back. And Jeff had said that he was trying to be understanding, like, listen, you're connected to this person. Maybe you need to, like, work through this, get some therapy and some help, because you're clearly not over this. And as some FCA life advice, if you're really seeing that somebody is not over their ex, like, if they're just like, oh, did you ever come here before? Yeah, I came here before with person I used to date. That's one thing. But if they're constantly going on and on and on and on and on, just endlessly, every time you're with them, they're talking about their ex in some way, shape, or form, they're not ready for a new person in their life. And he was kind of feeling the same way. He was kind of feeling strung along. Jeff was saying that he really wasn't, that connection wasn't there. It was just sort of a weird on-off platonic thing. And that Donna Adelson, not Donna Adelson, that Wendi Adelson had asked him to look at his TV in June. So if we remember, Donna Adelson had made an appointment for a TV repair person to come to Wendi's house July 18th at 11 in the morning, which is when the pew-pew was going to happen to Dan Markel. And the prosecution has argued that this was setting up an alibi for Wendi, because the police usually go after the spouse first in such incidents, or ex-spouse in this case. However, the TV has been broken since June. That's because there was originally, and Jeff was asked about this, if he knew that there was originally supposed to be the hit set up in June, and he said that he learned about it later on. He's aware of it now. And that was significant for two reasons. One, the TV was broken, and Wendi had asked him to look at it. This kind of seems to be a corroboration that she needed somebody else to see that the TV was broken, that somebody else could corroborate that, yeah, she had a broken TV that needed fixed. It wasn't that somebody was called to her house as an excuse, like it was legitimately broken. But the way Jeff described it, he said that the way it was mounted on the wall was too high, he thought, for the kids to have hit it, even hit it with something. It looked like somebody had hit the TV who was of 5'6", 6 foot nature, or 5'6" to 6 foot nature, because it looked like the TV had been hit, and he made a fist like this when he demonstrated. And he said because there was an area of distorted, a circular area of distortion on the picture, and then it spiderweb veined out, that style of break. So the TV Wendi Adelson is a wealthy woman. Her family is wealthy. She could have either gotten a new TV relatively easily, or she could have gotten it repaired much, much sooner. But instead, she maintained this broken TV from June all the way to the day of the second killing. Or the killing that was successful, if you want to call it that. I digress. Jeff continues to say that he thought that it was weird. He thought it was weird that she would point it out. And then he said that she had asked about his travel plans. Twice she had asked about his travel plans in June and in July. In July, they were trying, when they were more on an on situation, they were going to try to get a vacation in together. But it would be from July 7th or from July 9th to the 17th. And she said, oh no, I can't do that. I need to make sure that I'm in town. And he's like, well, we're going to be coming back on the morning of the 18th. She said, I need to make sure I'm here. Jeff said, Wendi said this. Wendi said, I need to make sure I'm back in time to get the kids on Friday morning. And Jeff said that he thought that was weird because he knew that the kids didn't get picked up from daycare until 5. And they were coming back in the morning of the 18th, so she would have plenty of time to get the kids. Well, now it's come to fruition that the real reason that she wanted this was because she needed to make sure she was back in time for that 11 a.m. TV repair person. Now, I don't understand this. This family is not amenable at all, it seems, because you would have had an alibi anyway, Wendi. You would be out of town with Jeff. Like, you would have a hotel receipt and gas receipts and whatnot. And food restaurant receipts. You would have still had an alibi. You didn't absolutely have to be back in town to have your alibi with the TV repair person. These people don't be knowing stuff. But Jeff said that the reason why it was weird the way she asked about travel plans is because she wanted to know what route he was taking to get out of town, both in June. And he said that he had to be back in time for Friday the 18th too, which is why he said he didn't understand, because he was leaving that morning to go to a job conference in Tennessee anyway. And they canceled that vacation. They didn't end up going. They went into more of an off period. And then they kind of communicated for a little while after a time of no communication, as requested by Wendi Adelson. And then Jeff said that they eventually settled on going to yoga. He didn't really understand why they were at yoga. Neither one of them really seemed into yoga. But he said that he went, he was trying to be peaceful and cordial. And he said that the relationship seemed pretty much off to him. And there was no, it was very disconnected. And he said that they're in the parking lot leaving the yoga date. And Wendi calls out to him and wants to double check his conference plans going to Tennessee. And he said, yeah, on Friday, and this was the day before, on Thursday. On Friday morning around 11 a.m., he was going to be leaving to be able to get to his conference in Tennessee. And the route he was going to take was one that he used pretty frequently to go out of town in that direction towards Gainesville, etc., which was the previous trip in June. It was to go by Trescott Drive. That is where Dan Markel lived. That in the first day of testimony with Luis Rivera, the driver of the Prius, one of the hitmen, he said, yeah, we knew we had to get him that day. We had a time frame of when we had to get Dan Markel because he was planning on leaving town for a while that Friday, so it would be even longer. And he said that Katie had told him it was really important that they get it done this time. They needed it done soon. As in the hit needed to be done soon. And Katie Magbuana, according to Luis Rivera, he was talking to whoever. He knew there was a dentist involved, and so the dentist was the one doing that. But Rivera never talked to Katie directly, and he never talked to Charlie Adelson or Donna Adelson or Wendi Adelson. He just knew there was a dentist connected somehow. But he knew that Dan Markel had travel plans. And Wendi knew that Dan had travel plans. That's why she had to get the kids on Friday, because Dan was going to be prepping to leave in the morning of Saturday. So Jeff says, yeah, I was going to take that way. But then he changed his plans. And this is significant because he started getting nervous. You could see that he was really upset and freaked out, because if you were wondering why the hitmen were using a light-colored Prius to do a hit, like why that vehicle, it's because that is a vehicle very similar to the one that Jeff Lacasse was driving at the time. He was driving a Nissan Altima, and originally Siegfried Garcia had rented in June a Nissan Altima. But an hour in, we're going to learn this later on, but it's important now, he got a ticket and he had to return the rental because he had gotten a ticket, and then he had to go and get a different car. And so the closest one, other than the actual Nissan Altima, was a Prius, and that's similar in build. And the prosecution presented this photo, and the Nissan Altima is the car on the top. That is the one, or similar to the one that Jeff was driving, and then the one that the hitman had is the one on the bottom. And at a glance, because the neighbor had seen a light-colored Prius drive out of the car, but if he had been shown an Altima, he very well could have said, yeah, that's similar. That looks like the car that I seen zooming out of Dan Markel's driveway before I found him in his car shot. And it seems that Wendi Adelson and Donna Adelson, and of course connectively Charlie Adelson, were setting this Jeff guy up to be a patsy, to be their fall guy. That any gap or connection between the Adelsons and the hitmen that could have been perceived, Jeff would fill in that gap as being the jealous new boyfriend, or the boyfriend who wanted to solve his new girlfriend's problems, be the hero. Dan Markel was giving his girlfriend issues. He took care of that. But thankfully, the universe was looking out for Jeff. When you put out the good vibes, you get them back. Jeff had decided that it would actually be better for him to leave for Tennessee on Thursday night rather than Friday morning. He was just kind of thinking about it, and he was like that he had made a last minute decision that it would be easier for him overall if he went to Tennessee on Thursday evening. So he packed up and had already left. And prosecution asked him, did you show law enforcement receipts from getting gas and getting food on your travel? And he goes, yes, and also I had gotten a flat tire while I was in Tennessee, and I was on some surveillance videos at a Kmart getting my tire fixed. So I'm sure at the moment that flat tire was an annoyance and an inconvenience, but it was a major save for him. That's the universe, blessing in disguise. Universe going, not today, Wendi Adelson. Jeff, safe from your toy. And it was because he was indeed originally targeted as a suspect by law enforcement for that reason. But again, because he had the receipts and the surveillance thing, his alibi was airtight and he was eliminated from being a suspect. Ms. Hull is a forensic financial investigator. She investigates the blue-collar crimes. And she was the one who had made the identifying things of the paychecks. Donna Adelson had been sending a series of 44 checks to Katie Magbenois. And they looked like payroll checks that they were kind of doled out supposedly every 2 weeks. The problem was, when you're doing payroll checks, there's more than one person usually on your payroll, so you're paying other things with the payroll checks, like with the business checks, right? If you're doing a check system for your money, which Donna Adelson 11 years ago was. And the checks were in sequential order. If for everyone who was under the age of 30 who might be watching this, checks have a check number in their corner. And when they're in sequential order, that means it's like check 488, check 489, check 490. And here is the exhibit that was presented, and it shows how often there were these sequential check orders, which is unusual for paychecks because you're usually giving out more than one paycheck. So if you have 4 employees, then in the very least, employee A should be waiting 4 sequential numbers before getting, or 5 sequential numbers before getting another check, not back to back to back. And that was suspicious. That rang suspicious. And they went over other investigation things of finances. They showed how Katie McBanois had a sudden surge of income that she had not had in the previous year. Here was the demonstrative that was used. Anything that gets presented in court, the jury is allowed to get in full. So any of the emails that were brought up, any of the documents, pictures, photos, etc., they get them in full. They might not go over every little line in court for time purposes. They'll present what's important for the big picture, and then the jury's allowed to read those on their own during deliberations. We had, following the financial things, we had a long-term 30-plus year employee, Clarissa, she was so cute, come onto the stand. And the reason why she was up there is she was asked how long she had worked at the Adelson Institute, how many people worked there. There were a total of 6 employees who had been employed long-term at the Adelson Institute. Donna was the manager, Dr. Harvey Adelson is the dentist, the hygienist, and then Charlie Adelson, Clarissa being Harvey's assistant, and then the dental assistant to periodontist Charlie Adelson. Clarissa had explained that Charlie only came to the Adelson Institute like maybe once or twice a month to work there, and otherwise being a periodontist, he was working in other facilities. So asked if there were any hired cleaning people, and she said yes, there was a husband-wife duo. She was asked about Katie McBanois. Had she ever met her? And she goes, I don't think so. I don't know the name. And they were like, this person never worked for you. No, this isn't one of the cleaning people. This isn't the wife in the cleaning duo. And she said, no, I know them. Neither one of their names start with K. And she said that, no, she never met that person, never worked for them. And that was important for the prosecution, because they want to kind of cut off anything saying, well, she didn't work in the office as a dental assistant or hygienist or any of those things. She was a cleaning person, which would be a lot more reasonable why other people wouldn't see her, but they already said, no, that wasn't the case. So then why was she getting all of this money under the payroll? And Rob Adelson had already pointed out that his mother is not the type to just do something. If Charlie had said, hey, just start paying this person money on our payroll, Donna would have some questions. Donna's not the type to be bossed around. So why was she doing that? Why was she the one repeatedly signing these checks to Katie over and over and over until Garcia's arrest? And just for your own knowledge, a periodontist is somebody who works on the gums. They don't really fill in cavities or do general cleanings like a hygienist and dentist would, or anything like that. They do gum work. So if you have gum disease, gingivitis, bone misalignment, jawbone issues, and they can perform surgeries. Some people just need some treatments with a periodontist, so that's the difference between what they were doing. Another pretty key witness, in my humble opinion, because we have Katie McBanois herself. Now, Katie is serving a life sentence for her part in this. She has already been convicted. And when she was brought on the stand, and that explains why she's in her and why Rivera were in their custody clothes and why Donna is not. In case you're wondering, let me just touch on this. The defendant has presumed innocence. They are charged, not convicted. So in order to not blurry a juror's mind or the jury's mind about this person being in custody, defendants are often allowed to wear street clothes or regular clothes during their thing for that presumed innocence. That way it covers all their bases for appeal. People who are already convicted in taking the witness stand, they do not have that presumption of innocence. They are convicted. So it's okay to show that they are convicted. So she was up on the stand, and she was asked if she was promised anything, just like Rivera was. Did anybody make any deal with you, any promises to you? Were you given any favors in exchange for your testimony today? They said no. And then it was asked, are you hoping to get anything out of it and at all? And Katie had said, I'm hoping that I'll get to be with my kids or something eventually. But there was no promises in that style made towards you. And she said no again. Then it was asked, well, you had lied on the stand before. And she goes, yes. And she said, why? She was like, when it was during my trial and I had taken the stand. I don't know why these people are taking the stand. You have a right to not do that and not be cross-examined. But I'll tell you why. I actually know why. Well, this is my speculation of why. I think that Katie, Charlie, Wendi, and Donna all have the same wrong thought. If they're not the ones directly doing the pew-pewing, if they can distance themselves from the situation, which is what they were doing, they were trying to not let any one person know too much. Plausible deniability. And they were thinking that that plausible deniability was enough. Katie McBenoit had admitted that she was having problems with her ex or sort of current husband, Siegfried Garcia, who was the actual killer pulling the trigger in this case. But at the time, in 2014, she was having problems with him. She was upset with him. And when Siegfried Garcia, found out that Katie was dating Charlie, he had actually been waiting for them at Katie McBenoit's house. And he got into a verbal altercation with Charlie out of jealousy, is how Katie described it. And it seems that Katie thought that she would not be charged as an accomplice, that she was seeing helping Charlie as a way to solve her own problems. So Katie McBenoit was asked specifically when Charlie Adelson had approached her about the hit. And she said on Halloween. It was on Halloween. Now that is interesting, because Wendi Adelson had canceled and backed out of buying a house in Tennessee on Halloween of 2013. Coincidence? I think not. But then we continue. We have Katie McBenoit saying that she didn't know about Dan Markel's travel plans. And the prosecution pressed her on that a little bit. And she was like, no, I didn't know. She goes, Charlie handed me an envelope. He put on gloves and he handed me a manila envelope and said, do not look at this. Do not read it. And he had told her that he had printed it off at one of his other dental practices that he worked at. Instead of going paying cash to print something that can't directly be placed to you. Why? Well, we'll explain when we get to Charlie. But anywho, so she was like, I didn't look at the envelope. I called Garcia. I said, hey, I have a package for you. You really need to come get it. And Garcia came. She handed him the envelope. Garcia read it, didn't show it to her. She didn't know anything about it. Now, she was also saying that she didn't know how much money was going to be there. She didn't know how much money her cut was going to be. She didn't know how much. And they had to ask her. She was like, your share of the money? Oh, yeah, my share of the money. Anywho, she said, I didn't know how much I was supposed to get for this. I just knew that I was going to get some money. And do I believe that she didn't know how much she was going to get paid to harm someone, because that is how Charlie approached her. He said, do you know someone who could harm somebody else? And it wasn't beat somebody up. It wasn't jump someone. Harm was definitely life-ending harm. The intention and understanding of that was there. And she said, yes, again, I'm very much standing by. She thought she could take care of her Garcia problem and her new boyfriend and make some money out of it. And then she said that she thought the truth was important, that she just... And I think that she just people, once they're convicted, they're like, you're all going down with me. And she said that she had only met Donna Adelson when she went to get her teeth. She said that she needed some work done on her teeth, and she got like a whitening done and some other work done on her teeth, and that they had exchanged some pleasantries. Other than that, she had never met Donna Adelson or hung out with Donna Adelson. After that, she had met Wendi Adelson a couple times. They showed a picture of her and Katie on a beach trip, having some drinks, hanging out. And she said that she had met Wendi a couple times, could pick her out in a crowd, etc. Then she had said that when the money was given to her, the day that the shooting happened, she got confirmation that the shooting had happened, and Garcia wanted his money, of course. So she goes to see Charlie. She said that Charlie was a wreck, pacing back and forth, and had a gun in his hand. And she was like, maybe you need to calm down. And then he took a Xanax, gave her a Xanax, and he's a periodontist. He does surgeries. He takes care of people who have bone-related gum and tissue disorders. He has access to these prescription drugs that he's just using as needed for himself, apparently. And he said that he gave her one, and she didn't want to argue with him, so they both took a Xanax, and she slept over. And he said, my mom has the money in the trunk. The money's in your trunk. You can go take care of that. And the money, she said, was in a grocery bag. So there was a plastic bag, then a paper bag, and then a Ziploc bag inside of it. She said that she didn't open it. She was just told that that's what the money was. She didn't even look in her trunk initially. She was just told that the money was in her trunk. She drove off. She tried to get a hold of Garcia, couldn't get a hold of Garcia. So then she said she didn't know that Rivera was a part of all this, but then she went to Rivera when she couldn't get a hold of Garcia. Garcia got the money out of her trunk, and then he had come back either the next day or the day after, she can't remember which one, and he had brought the money, her cut, her share, and put it in her closet. And it was in that grocery bag, Ziploc bag. And in the Ziploc bag, she said there was moisture in it, like inside condensation. The money was damp. It was moldy and smelled musty, and it was damp. And she asked Charlie about it, and that the dollar bills were, the bills were stapled together. And Charlie said it's because it was washed, that his mother had washed it. So, because she doesn't know how to launder money. Again, I brought this up before. Then we have Harvey Adelson being the one who tied everything together, because she said that there was an altercation. After the altercation between Charlie and Garcia, when she had first started dating Charlie and Garcia got jealous, it seemed that Garcia wanted to try to call Charlie, and Katie Magbuana said that she thought he just did a Google search of, like, because he knew that Charlie was a dentist. So he was trying to look up Dr. Adelson and ended up calling Harvey. The law enforcement went through thousands and thousands of phone records, and there was one phone call that matched numbers between any of the Adelsons and Garcia, and it was that he had tried to call Charlie and got the wrong Dr. Adelson. So that's that happened. So we had that ending. We had an FBI investigator. It's Corbett. And this man, he, like, how long have you been on the FBI police force? 29 years, 11 months. This man is counting down to that retirement. But he was the one who was going through things. He was one of the main, he was the lead investigator. And this lead investigator has all of his dots, all of his notes in order. Again, I'm always impressed by that. And that is where we are on day 3. We have a boyfriend being set up to be a patsy. We have Katie not knowing travel plans, but Rivera knew travel plans. Well, who else knew all the travel plans to coordinate Jeff being the patsy and that Dan had to get offed on that Friday? Wendi. I want Wendi to get charged as a co-conspirator so badly right now. Like, oh my peaches. But we will get into more of that on day 4.